You, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, step right up. It's your man, I Do It Barber here, back with another haircut tutorial. I know it's been a while, but as you can see, I transformed my little man. I had to get him ready for his kindergarten graduation, so I'm going to be using the detachable blades in this tutorial. So for those of you guys that have all these questions bombarding me in the comments and DMs, here you are with another detachable blade tutorial. So first, as you can see, he had a Mohawk, so I'm using the clippers. I opened the lever up slightly and I'm just going in and creating this guideline. And don't forget to get your popcorn ready, because as you saw, this is about a 20-minute tutorial, so we're gonna get quite comfortable and we're gonna get acquainted. So get your popcorn ready, get some snacks, get your soda pop, strap in, and we're locked and loaded. So as you see, I'm balding out with the 5-out trimmer blade. And just to let you guys know, I have never faded with this set of blades that I'm using in this video here. I have another set of blades that I typically fade with, but this set of blades I got for the low, but I've never used them. So for this haircut, I just decided, let me just use this set of blades just to see if they're cutting the way I like to, because the other set of blades I have, one, they have ceramic cutting blades on them, and two, I've also adjusted all of the blades to my liking. So as you see here, I'm clearing out some bulk. I got the 3 3/4 blade, which is around the equivalent to like a 3.5, 4 maybe, but I'm just clearing bulk because obviously as I go in to set my guidelines, I don't want to go in set guidelines into long hair, because you won't be able to see your guidelines. For those of you guys that use guidelines, you need to be able to set clean guidelines in so you can add structure to your fade. So I'm getting him extra bald now using the Bronze Series 7 shaver, and I'm just getting him extra bald. As you can see, look, if you look at the complexion of his skin that I'm balding out, his complexion is a lot lighter than the rest, like his face for instance, which means when it comes to doing the fade, you actually have to make sure that fade is spread out, because it's until his skin down there gets tan enough, it's gonna really expose every line of the hair, or even just that bottom line. So you'll see later in the video, I had to do a little bit of tweaking and stuff. And actually a lot of the tools I used in this video for this tutorial, I don't typically use in conjunction with what I was using, like the pair of slim lines. I didn't use those typically to erase a shaver line. But anyway, I got the OA blade on and I'm going up an inch creating this guideline. And if you guys are curious, if you're wondering like, what is this, what is that, I made a video talking about detachable blades, understanding detachable blades or something like that. You can go check out the video on that to get the equivalence for those of you guys that fade with guards and maybe you're looking to do the transition and switch over to blades. So the next blade I'm using, I'm setting another guideline in an inch above that. This is the 1.5 blade. So as you can see the contrast difference between the OA and the 1.5. So I'm just finishing up, tidying up my guideline. All right, and here I have the 3.5 blade on. So I'm basically sort of like setting another guideline on top of the 1.5, mainly due to his hair texture and his hair type. With his hair texture and hair type, it's a 1.5 doesn't necessarily fade up into long hair. I actually have to go and use like a 3.5, or maybe depending on the hairstyle, 3 3/4. So now I got the 1A blade on, and I'm lightening up that line that I created with the OA. Now, if you look at this fade, it looks kind of messy, but just wait for the end and you'll see what the end result is. So I'm just going around, I'm using primarily a lot of the blade, because the amount of hair that comes off between the 1.5 and the 1A is very minute. So I can go in a little bit higher at some points, and that's what I was doing there. You can see the contrast difference already just by me using that. So now I have the 1 blade on and I'm using the corners and I'm using this to erase that line that was created by the OA. And as you can see, that line there, it just blurs together now with the OA. So if you look at the guideline that I created with the 1.5, it almost transitions smoothly down into the OA. So now I'm using my 2 blade to blend in that line that I created with the 1.5 and the line that I created with the 3.5. So the 2 is in between the 1.5 and the 3.5. So that's what I'm doing. I'm tying that in together, and of course you're gonna see that line blur away mostly into the length up top. The highest blade that I used in this video was a 3 3/4. Like I said, the equivalent of a 3.5, 4, depends. But now I have the 000 on, and I'm trying to lighten up that bottom line. Now, like I said, the 5 out and the triple out that I use on my other set of blades, those are 0 gaps. This 5 out and this triple out is not 0 gaps, so it's not having the same effect that I normally would get using my normal set of blades. And that was the reason behind me using this set of blades for this video and his hair type and hair texture, just to see how they react to the hair versus my other set of blades. And I could already tell that this set of blades is totally different, the way they cut and fade versus my other ones. And I think I'm gonna come back later and adjust these later to my liking. So now I've got my adjustables on, I've got them fully closed, and I'm just trying to lighten up that line. And of course, if you're a barber, which I would assume a lot of barbers are watching, or even for some of those of you that may not be barbers that just want to learn how to cut some kids' hair or whatnot, or just anyone's hair for that matter, you will notice that the hair on the sides blend out easier than the hair in the back. And I had this problem in this haircut. As you can see, there's a little bit of a line there, and so I had to do a lot of finessing. I'm not even gonna lie, I did a lot of finessing to get that line out, because like I was telling you guys earlier, his complexion, he's had that mohawk for a while, and his skin is not tan yet to even hide that line, so it exposes everything. It's just like when you're doing a skin fade where you use the shaver, and someone who has a very pale complexion and they have dark coarse hair, you really have to spread the blend out and make it appear like there's no line, because it's going to show every little detail. So as you see, I'm using my Slimline Pro LIs. These are slim lines that I don't typically use to erase a shaver line. I have another set of slim lines that will get that job done much easier. So this haircut tutorial is quite tricky. So now for the Pompadour, I'm doing a side part. So now I wet his hair and I'm trying to get his part ready. So for those of you that are curious, when you're doing the part initially, or some sort of horseshoe parting, or maybe you're trying to do a part for someone who has like a disconnect, when you're the person doing the initial part, please make sure it's straight. So as you can see, it's as straight as it can possibly be. The hair that's hanging over now, I'm doing scissor over comb to connect the short hairs up into this long hair, because I didn't want to just run the 3 3/4 all the way up to that side part. I wanted to leave some length through there, so I just decided to do scissor over comb in this area, in the back and the other side. So it's real simple. Just keep the steel blade flat to the spine of the comb and move your thumb. Scissor over comb is very simple. I know it might not be for some people, but with practice, it will make perfect for you. And I love scissor over comb a lot. I do a lot more scissor over comb than I have ever done. I almost don't really like using clipper over comb. Sometimes there's a time and place for clipper over comb, but primarily I prefer clipper or scissor over comb, especially when it comes to like tightening up a fade in between, let's say the 1 or 0 area all the way up to whatever length. I like using scissor over comb because the scissor look is much softer than going in there using the clipper. So I find it, for me, awesome using scissor over comb to maybe lighten up some dark spots within the fade. I really like the way It looks, it's quick, it's easy. I don't have to worry about putting on which guard and tinkering with it. But now, as you can see, I'm putting this side part in with the trimmers. And of course, when you're doing any part, there's always two sides to a line, so you want to make sure you hit both sides of the line and make sure it's really well defined. So as you see, I'm just coming back in there, touched up some scissor over comb. So now I'm combing his hair forward, so I'm gonna do some profile parting to cut the length on top. As you saw, his hair is really curly, and from the little clip that you saw at the beginning, I turned this into a pompadour, and his hair is I pretty much straightened his hair out for the most part. So as you see there, you can see this, that's a good, I would say 5, maybe 6 inches of hair. So for a pompadour, you need the back to be a little bit shorter and the front longer. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm starting from the back, working my way forward, and I'm making sure that the back is shorter, and I elevate the length of his hair as I get to the front. So it's almost like a ramp, almost, because with the pompadour, that's the shape you want. You want that ramp shape where the hair pumps up in the front and it flows to the back. So that's what I'm doing here. And mind you, his hair is really tricky. And I noticed something in this video. I should not have been using these 7-inch shears. I have another pair of shears that I typically use for the top of the hair. They're like 5 1/4, 5 1/2 or something like that. And they're much more precise. I just really didn't feel like going to grab my other shears, to be honest. So typically, if you're those of you guys that are wondering, I don't use that. So I'm showing you now how much I cut versus what is actually there. So now I'm just gonna connect both of those. I see my guide, and now I'm gonna cut. I really wish I would have used my other shears for this. It would have been a lot easier instead of using these 7-inch shears, because those are 7-inch Samvia shears, for those of you guys that are curious. And his hair is also tricky when cutting the top, because with his hair being so curly, like as soon as you put tension on his hair, it just curls right on your finger. So you got to be real careful with this hair. You got to be extra careful not to get greedy, because one, you'll definitely cut yourself. You know, the rule of thumb is don't cut past your second knuckle, although you guys will probably see me do that in this video. But if you look closely, I'm resting the steel blade on my finger and weaving that steel blade underneath the hair, and I'm just moving the top blade. So the threat of that actually cutting me is almost non-existent. But be very careful with hair like this. If you're using scissors to cut curly hair, especially the curly hair that curls right into your finger, you could definitely hurt yourself. So as you see, I grabbed the other section that I parted on the other side, and I just connected them both. This is a really simple technique. Now I'm using scissor over comb to connect the back and take off some of that hair that's overlapping there, and that's not gonna connect. It would more look like an undercut almost, and I don't really want the undercut look. I still want the hair to flow into the back, but I also don't want to keep too much length in the back. So this is almost one of those things where I had to create a happy medium. This is a mid-ball phase. So now I'm doing this edge up. I'm keeping it real simple. I'm not exaggerating too much. I'm just trying to keep this as natural as possible. Keep it within the guidelines of doing an edge up. With his edge up, you almost have to create it, because his hair doesn't grow like extremely wild, but it grows long enough. You can't really see it through the camera. There's a lot of vellus hair through the front there that throws off his line, and his line is not straight. So I actually have to go in and create it. I use reference points, which is the corner of his, or not the corner, but the end of his eyebrow. I use that to go up and create that sort of box shape. Just for those of you guys that are wondering on how to create an edge up, you want to use reference points when you're trying to create an edge up. And typically not necessarily the end of the eyebrow, but towards the end of the eyebrow is a good reference point as to where to start the box there. So now I'm just coming back. As you saw, there's a little line through that area. His head, there's actually an indentation right there where I'm fading, trying to soften up that spot. There's an indentation in his head, and it casts a shadow, and it makes it appear that it's darker, but it's just the shape of his head. So as barbers, we have to create these illusions sometimes. So for those of you guys that are wondering, may have problems with this, you actually have to go in and create the illusion that it's not there. That is our job as a barber. That's what we're paid for, especially the good barbers. You know, and I've had plenty of clients where, you know, they have different indentions, lumps, whatever the case may be in their head. You actually have to go in. It's your job to go in there and lighten up some of those spots and make them appear like the hair is all one length. Because let's say you take a 2 and run a 2 up to the parietal ridge. If they have lumps or whatever indentions in their head, there's going to be shadows in there that makes it appear dark, because in those shadows it's not a 2 length, it may be a 2.5, so it appears dark. So you have to go in there and lighten up those areas. So now I've got the razor and I'm tightening up his line. I'm doing one side and now I'm doing the other. So like I said earlier when I was setting it in with the trimmers, there are 2 sides to a line, so I'm just knocking out that on both sides just to make sure it's extra clean for his kindergarten graduation. My little man's gonna be a first grader next year. Anyway, so that's done. So now I'm wetting his forehead. That's just water and sea breeze, if you guys are curious. And I'm just gonna tighten up his edge up with the razor, just get some of those vellus hairs that the trimmers wouldn't get. And also I wasn't really trying to clip those off with the trimmers. As you saw when I did his edge up, I was just focused more on the edge up. Typically when I cut his hair, I don't worry about the vellus hair. I'll just cut it off with the razor, so it's just nice and smooth, and his complexion looks more normal after I do that. So stretching the skin, keeping the blade pretty flat, you know, anywhere between 10 to 30 degrees. And as you see here, I still got to do a little bit of tidying up on that right side where connecting from the short to long. So now I'm gonna go into blow drying and styling. I didn't show how I connected that on the sides, but it's actually pretty simple. If you watch any of my other tutorials, I show how I connect the hair on the sides. So now I'm blow drying and I'm starting from the back, working my way forward. And this is how I blow dry when I'm doing pompadours or comb overs. I start from the back and work my way forward, because the hair in the back can be a pain in the butt if it doesn't dry. If you just dry from the front back, I feel it's not good, because you don't get a good shape and dry the hair thoroughly, and you may have some wet spots in the hair that may not dry properly, and your style will collapse on you, especially once you put product in. So now, if you saw, look back about maybe 5-10 seconds, I started to elevate his hair. Once it started to get to the middle of his head, I started to elevate the pompadour. So as you see in the front, I'm creating some volume in his hair with heat. I'm using heat to manipulate and straighten his hair. There's a few different ways. Like when you have curly hair, there's a few ways to manipulate, and that's with heat or chemicals. I'm using heat. So I'm using Layrite natural cream, I think, and I'm just styling him out, getting it all in his hair, and now I'm just styling him. I created the shape I want. I blow dried all the hair into place. It's exactly how I wanted. I think it's a really good style. I posted this picture on my Instagram. If you're curious, follow me on Instagram. As you see, they're doing the 360 there. That's the cut, man. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I hope you guys learned something from this haircut tutorial, and maybe even on trying to style someone's hair that has curly hair. You saw what he went from and to what he is now. So for those of you guys that are curious and may have a kid that has this hair type or texture, this maybe will help you. But it's your man, I Do It. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, share. I'm out. Or am I? But no, I'm really out. Y'all have a good one.